All right, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Ask the Professional, Real Estate Professionals today, through the Undergraduate Career Services Department. I'm David Carter. I'm going to be the moderator today. I'm also the director for the Center for Real Estate Entrepreneurship and the Masters in Real Estate Development at the Costello College of Business in Arlington location. We have a great panel today to try to talk to you, give you an opportunity to speak with them about careers in real estate. And having been in real estate for about 30 years, I can tell you there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of career opportunities. There's a lot of varied paths to get you there. So we're going to hear from four very successful real estate professionals today, hear how they got where they got and what kind of advice, sage advice they may offer to folks coming up through the ranks as undergraduates now. So I'm going to start and go down the panel and ask them to introduce themselves and what their current position is. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how they got there. So Brian, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. I'm Brian Davidson, Chief Operating Officer for Metre. Been with the company for 36 years, just out of college, which I went to George Mason.
Jill?
My name is Jill Norcross, and I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance. We are an education advocacy organization that works with communities to increase affordable housing and preserve the affordable housing that we have. And I have been in affordable housing my entire career as well.
My name is Shawn Williams. I'm the Director of Administration, handling the legal, marketing, IT, and HR side of things. I've been with Stoladi for over 5 years now. Kind of new to the industry, but a lot of experience handling all different types of administration for real estate and such.
Good morning, Anthony Piscitelli with Arcland Property Company. I run the investments team. We're one of the fastest growing self-storage brands in the country. Been with the company for 10 years. I'm a graduate of West Virginia University.
All right, so I want to flesh out a little bit more about how you got to where you are today. All very successful in what you're doing, but it didn't happen overnight, I'm guessing. So Brian, glad to hear you're a George Mason graduate. It's really exciting. You spent your whole career with Van Metre. But first off, how did you make that first step, in terms of when you graduated from college, and how did you work your way through the ranks?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we didn't have a real estate school or at George Mason at the time, but I graduated with an economics degree. My grandfather was a builder in Kentucky growing up, so I did a lot of, I was the summer help. I didn't have to pay me very much, and I knew I wanted to get into this industry, but I got into it on the finance side. I started entry-level accounting for a much smaller company. I mean, Van Metre is a home builder, developer. We also have a manufacturing plant. We have a property management, investment properties wing, and a mortgage and title company, but I came up on the new home side, and so that's my story.
Okay, Jill?
Yeah, I did my undergraduate at James Madison University. I was a communications major. I still feel like I use that a lot in this job. My first job out of college was working marketing airplane engines, and felt like that was like a really long runway to kind of go from marketing to actually closing the deal and making the sale. So although I found out that affordable housing even has a longer timeline and horizon, but wanted to do something to kind of just like improve my community, improve the world. And I went to graduate school at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in their planning department. So loved the planning department, but really honed in on real estate and housing while I was there, and just kind of found my passion from there.
Okay, Shawn?
I actually grew up in Florida and was studying psychology and switched to education, and the university I was attending dropped the programs. So I actually stopped school for a while, kind of lost, like, what do I really want to do with my life? And I started working for a law firm, and the law firm kind of pushed me to grow and grow. So I went back to school, started studying to become a paralegal, get my paralegal degree. And the professor pulled me out of the class and said, change your major. You're good as a manager. You're good at administration. So I switched my whole major again and got my degree in management and organizational leadership, moved to DC, started working for a law firm. I worked in law for over 15 years. And by chance, I got a phone call from Stoladi that said, we would like you to come work for us. We're looking to grow. And we have heard from one of the attorneys that you used to work for that you are an amazing individual, and we really want you on our team. So I made the switch. I've been there ever since, and love the industry. I love my team. It is totally different from law. It is so much better. And yeah, just absolutely love it. it's an amazing story. So I know you and I were talking, keep on it. Your major might change, but it's a great industry to get into.
Kevin?
Yeah, I went to West Virginia University, studied finance, thought I wanted to be a derivatives trader, graduated in late 2007. And by mid 2008, there were no finance jobs available due to the great financial crisis. But my path to real estate was, started early. My dad had his real estate license. He was a teacher by official trade, and at nights and weekends he sold real estate. And we had we managed some apartments, which means we had cut up a house into 3 apartments and we rented those out. And that was my first foray into real estate. But eventually got my real estate license coming out of the great financial crisis, and that's how I got started.
Let's talk a little bit about the passion. Like, what do you love about real estate? What's really cool or fun about real estate that sets it apart from some other industry, some other business people might consider? Brian, like anything, like you just like, man, I love this part of the
Yeah,
business.
I think it's something that everybody understands, and we've all lived in shelter. And so it's something that you're, doing for the better good. I do like the affordable side of this as well, but certainly we're providing housing, and building communities. The building business, while I think it's stuck a little bit. I mean, I mentioned my grandfather built in the 50s. Not a lot has changed in the building industry, the pieces and parts, and, at Van Metre, we're working more towards more innovation. So innovation is really what drives me right now, in terms of looking at better ways to do things.
Jill, how about you? What gets you excited about your career?
Sure. Yeah. Just like Brian said, I mean, I think housing is the foundation for success for everyone. And I think if you have stable housing and it's affordable housing, then you are able to really kind of write your own ticket. And so I love the fact of working, at all levels of residential real estate, just impacting lives in ways that you probably don't ever get to see some cases, but watching people move from a rental housing situation into home ownership is amazing. And the second thing I love is the people side of real estate. Real estate is a team sport. So you are interacting with people from all different backgrounds. No one can do this work alone. So if you are a people person, I think the most successful people in real estate they are good at connecting with others. They are good at finding resources, uncovering every stone. It's all about finding, financial resources, using other people's money to advance your projects and deals. But I think I love that piece of it too, because I'm always meeting great people. And I do think the majority of people in this industry, especially in affordable housing, really are passionate about their work and working hard to make those important connections to get things done.
Yeah, Jill said it best. People, very important. Seeing people's lives changed. And for me, customer service. My company just started doing receiverships, which I don't know if you all know what that is.
Explain that, I think.
Sure. So a property, apartments, condos are owned by an individual or a company, and they no longer take care of that building, and the lender is owed money and they're not paying that lender. So the courts go in and take over this property, and then a court is decided upon who will take care of that property. And whoever takes care of the property then hires property management to come in and fix it up so that they can flip everything and resell it and get it back to in a good shape where it's making money to where they can finally pay back the lender. So we are taking over properties that are just dilapidated. They're falling apart. These individuals are living in these homes and they're just not being taken care of. So we are going in, fixing it, changing it, showing that customer service that we are there, we care about you. And the feedback we get is just astounding. It's great to see these individuals like, I have my life back. I'm able to afford something. I can now, eventually sell my place and buy an actual house. It's that customer service, that people connection that really makes real estate so wonderful to me.
You make an impact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anthony?
Yeah, same theme, agree with it's the connection of physical assets to the people that use them ultimately, which in commercial real estate doesn't always feel that way because it's very finance and banking, a lot of stuff that's not touchy-feely. We're a self-storage company, so we've been accused of all kind of we help people hoard, we're not good for the community because people are storing stuff that they shouldn't. But the reality is we're the space of last resort for many folks that are having bad days. That and it's driven by, unfortunately, divorce, death, dislocation. We are a place for people to bring stuff that they have no place to put it. We spend a lot of time with our property managers, our design team, making sure it's usable for everybody that's coming in, and it's functional so that for those folks that are having a really bad day, it's something they can use easily. Aside from that, we're a developer, so we do build a lot, and I think just the opportunity to create something out of functionally nothing, out of dirt, is a really fun process to be in.
Dig a little deeper on that, literally or figuratively, on development. So what does a developer do? For people in the audience who may not really understand, what does a developer do in your industry?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a very clear answer to that. I teach it every day at our company. We don't actually do anything. Developers generally hire other folks to help us put together a business plan. That's consultants, that's a design team, that's a lending team, that's an equity. So, when you build, just like when you buy a home, when you're doing a development, you have to have debt and you have to have somebody invest capital. And we do both of those externally. And then what the developer really does is take the risk on the whole piece coming together, which is really an issue of time. And you think about, for us, I mean, going from step one of we identify the land, we think we can do what we want to do, which is it takes us about a year to get to a permit. We're another year or so to build it. And then we're another 3 years to have the business plan to come together. What you're really managing is risk across that time frame. Developers don't build. We generally don't design, hopefully. Brian's business may be a little different in homes when you actually build your own homes, but for us, it's really about managing the risk.
So Brian, why don't you elaborate a little bit more? You have a specific niche. In some ways, it's residential real estate generally. I know you also do commercial as well.
Yeah.
What is development for you? What does that mean in terms of practically, hey, I've got 1,000 acres or I've got 100 acres. How does it work?
So, I mean, there's an entitlement process. So you identify
What does that mean, entitlement? For folks who don't understand what an entitlement is.
ultimately what's going to be built there. And there is a comprehensive plan in every jurisdiction that we have that says this can be residential real estate, this can be self-storage, this could be something else, or quite frankly. And so you look at what you will likely be able to build there as it's zoned. A lot of times you can do a rezoning to where you can change that piece of property into something else. So it could be a commercial center and you turn it into lots. And, to be clear with Van Metre, very similar to what you're talking about. I mean, we have 600 employees, so we have a lot of employees, but other than the manufacturing end, which we're now doing a big part of the house, we are 100% subcontracted, the same thing that you're doing.
Yep.
Hire outside engineers, hire outside developers. But ultimately the entitlement process, you create something and then you hire people to execute that.
So for you, for example, you might have a vision to put single family houses in an area.
Yep.
And you're almost like the orchestra leader where you might hire a land use attorney and say, can we do that?
Mhm.
Well, we'd like to make more houses. We don't want to just have one house per 5 acres. We want to do one house per acre or quarter acre lots. And so you might engage an engineer to help you lay that out a little bit, right? And then you'll go to try to change your entitlements, maybe rezone it to something more intensive use.
And then it goes back and forth with officials on, if we add a rooftop, we're adding students, roads that need to be done. So there's ultimately a trade-off between what you have to do to get that zoning, and that's how it works.
And so your engineer might tell you where to run the pipes because you need to get water in there, you need to get waste out of there, you need to have electricity and other utilities. So that would be an engineer, and some other folks would help you with that. And so when you get land, you're gonna put all that stuff in, right? So when you're building a project that has raw land that just was an old farm, let's say, tell me talk a little bit about what's involved in turning that into the finished product you see.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned about, water. You have to make sure that utilities are to the site. And if utilities are not there and you got to bring them along the way, it might not be economically viable. So we'll certainly look at that and say there's water up the street. We've got to run a water pipe and sewer pipe. If you don't have water and sewer, you have nothing. Don't have electricity, you have nothing. So we have to make those calls to make sure that the site has what it needs. And then ultimately, we will hire a general contractor who will, drop the trees and, follow what we want to do in terms of developing and creating the lots, and then we're building houses.
So in terms of the folks who might get involved, for example, like you're kind of the spear point, but if you're interested in real estate, you could be involved in real estate development by being an engineer.
Mhm.
You could be a landscape architect, right? Because you hire landscape architects to plan out how the place is going to be attractive with trees and bushes along the way in front of the houses. You could be a contractor that's very specialized. You just do road paving, for example, or put in utilities. You can be an architect who will design your houses maybe. And do you have in-house brokers maybe who will sell your houses, right? So you have a marketing team and you have people who are in your model homes and even your interiors of your homes, right? Like you may stage those, interior designers may be involved. There's a whole lot of folks who touch your product to make it happen.
Yeah,
Right?
and some of that, with my company a little bigger, so we have in-house marketing, we have in-house sales, we have in-house architecture. We do have some engineers on staff, but generally, most of our competitors, it is outside people that are handling that. But I mean, there's a long list of what we call subcontractors or trades or consultants that we deal with. It's probably, if we're taking something from a virgin piece of ground to building homes on it, it is 100 different outside people that we're dealing with. I mean, there's literally a plumber. It's not a plumber and electrician are the same person. It is, or the same company. There's a plumber, there's drywall and paint, there's electricity, you mentioned the engineers and the land planners, the general contractors we deal with.
So there's a whole lot of folks, and there's folks on the government side who review all that, right? So you have plans, they have to be submitted to the county or the city or whatever it is. So someone's on the other side of that. And people like maybe Jill, what you would train for is a planner. So some of these people are trying to figure out what this should be. It may be this today, but what should it be? So a lot of the same work that's done in private is also sort of done in the public sector as a government person trying to look over your shoulder and help you along the way.
And as you know, with your background, you can, certainly work with the planning department, have a great subdivision approved, and then the political process gets in the middle of that as well. Good and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jill, affordable housing, why don't you talk a little bit about kind of all the different facets people could touch on that? Because I know there's a lot of people who are very altruistic, who want to get involved, help the community. How can they do that in kind of your field?
Sure. Yeah. Again, I think it's a team sport. So there's a lot of interplay between the public sector, local government, staff, and elected officials. I think here in Northern Virginia, we're really fortunate because I think we've built the case that affordable housing is an important component of any community. So I feel like over my career, I've seen that political change happen. We're also in a point where we are having a housing shortage, and this is across the country. So we're able to make the case that we need more housing supply at every price point, every income level, but especially at the affordable housing levels too. So I feel like in our industry, we interact with both for-profit and non-for-profit developers that have, basically everybody kind of has the same mission to produce and preserve affordable housing in our communities. A lot of the nonprofit side might specialize in resident services. So those are human services that they bring on site to the properties to help residents. It might be after school programs, job readiness training. We have, organizations that serve and build permanent supportive housing. So those are helping individuals who are chronically homeless stay stably housed with intensive wraparound support services to help them be successful. It's the range of public, private, nonprofit partnerships that all work together to get this done. And then we're really fortunate to have philanthropy, community foundations, higher education partners like George Mason, and also corporate partners like Amazon, who are investing real dollars and money to kind of help bring additional subsidy to these programs. So there's a lot of ways to interact in addition to property management, law, legal, some of the other fields that we've talked about. It really design, it all is comprehensive.
So what you do though is different from what Brian does. In some ways it's the same, but other ways it's different because predominantly it's maybe more heavily regulated by government and the source of funds. It's not private market so much, it's more either governments, grants, tax credits. Why don't you talk a little bit about how it differs from private development?
Sure, sure. So if you're building affordable housing, I mean, the market delivers amazing housing product, but a lot of times it can't deliver it to make it affordable for those who are earning, let's say, around 60% of the area median income. Our area median income for this region is really high. It's like $165,000 a year for a family of four. And so often the market isn't able to deliver housing that's affordable to people making like half of that, let's say. So there are programs with the federal government, state government, and local government that incentivize developers to build that product and help write down the cost. So it is a very heavily regulated industry. The national low-income housing tax credit is the #1 way that we are able to develop affordable housing in our country. It's an IRS program run by the US government. Again, heavily regulated. It's a niche market, so we have developers that are very expert on it. We have property managers who are expert on it. There's a lot of compliance that goes along with it. So that's a little bit different. And then usually that's not enough, right? Just to get a tax credit in your development deal isn't enough. So you have to work with local governments who have housing trust funds that'll add another layer of subsidy. Again, we have corporate partners, philanthropic partners who are also making investments in the affordable housing deal. So it is a little trickier, but I like to say, like, we have the tools to solve the problem. We just need more of it, right? And a lot of times that means more money. That means maybe looser zoning regulations or fast tracking processes to make it happen faster, because time is money. Brian knows when you're trying to develop housing. So we're kind of pushing. I'm meeting a lot with local government partners and really with the public to try to explain how some of these tools can be better used, but we know how to do this. We just need more of it.
And to be clear, we are in this space as well. We're developing some affordable sites, light-tech buildings. So we're in this space as well. Some of that is part of what, I mentioned the things you have to do to get something zoned, and there will be a component of affordable, which is a good thing in the community. And so we execute on that as well.
And so affordable sounds like there's many more opportunities potentially in the government side. In other words, that it's very heavily regulated. A lot of the money, the financing comes from it. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's just there's policies that happen at the government side locally. Brian mentioned, inclusionary zoning. So that's where maybe a developer gets additional density, able to build more units on their site if some of the units that they're building are affordable. So I think we have great projects. It doesn't have to be all affordable. It can be kind of a more mixed income type development, which is important, I think, in communities too. So, but yeah, I think it is more heavily on government side, but we do really rely on the private partnerships of developers like Brian and property managers to kind of get it all done.
So Shawn, tell us what property managers actually do. I think everybody kind of has an idea what they do. What do you all do?
Whew, that's a loaded.
Don't
I was just say that's a loaded question.
Not touching rent.
So
Like a day-to-day.
the day-to-day. So, well, if it's the weekends, we could get a maintenance call that a pipe has busted. So we have to dispatch engineers to go fix that. Fire panel is going off, elevators are down. There's so many things, flipping apartments so we can rent those out. That's kind of the maintenance engineering side of things. As far as the property management side, it's going through policies. If it's affordable housing, making sure all the paperwork is filled out, making sure that rent is paid. If it's commercial, you're talking with the owners, trying to lease out space. If it's an HOA, you're dealing with bylaws and the board and having monthly meetings. I mean, it really is a loaded question because there's so much that goes on with property management. You are never bored. Your day is never the same. It's absolutely amazing to see and watch my property managers and engineers like work as a team. I know you had mentioned team. That is truly key to this industry, is a team. And that is something I instill all across the board to my team is we're a team. You're not in this alone. You're going to be dealing with financing. You're going to be dealing with ownership. You're going to be dealing with laws, and it changes day to day.
And so do you have a role in management in terms of, let's reposition this, or this is the highest and best use, or we can actually squeeze more juice out of this, orange by doing this and that. Is that part of what you're doing?
Yeah, so sometimes with kind of the leasing space and such, if, for instance, we had a huge space that we were trying to lease out and it just wasn't leasing. Of course, it's commercial, which is a very rough industry right now. So our idea was to white box it, take everything out, make it a blank space so that when potential tenants come in, they can kind of vision their own office there instead of what it was already set up as, and kind of like, well, I don't know if I can work with this space. So it's kind of reimagining things, seeing, as you said, if we can squeeze more juice out of something. A building has a budget and they are spending way too much. We can come back and say, look, this is a project that doesn't need to be done right now. Let's hold off for a couple of years. Your roof is fine. We don't need to replace that. Let's save you on the budget and get other things done first before we get that done. So it's a lot with financing, a lot with trying to save the owner's money, leasing space out. It's really important to customer service, make sure your people are happy.
Anthony, so self-storage seems like it's highly competitive right now and kind of a cutting edge real estate entrepreneurial endeavor. Would you agree with that? And in what ways does that play into what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. Self-storage it's been around since the 70s. We all know it is historically the rows of buildings, gravel drive aisles, chain link fences, maybe not. And in the early 2000s, the industry really came into its own with really the invention of modern storage, which is mostly what we do. So it's, 3, 4, 5-story buildings with pretty architecture that's largely climate controlled, that caters to a wide range of tenants, but largely residential tenants who are looking to store extra stuff. And that's being driven by people being in smaller housing, people moving more, lots of things. But the biggest impact we've had in the last probably 10 years was during the pandemic, when all of a sudden you had people that could not go to work. They needed an office in their house. They needed to make more room in their house. And there was a flood of demand for storage. And at that point, simultaneously, many institutions that previously did not consider us investment grade for large capital, think Blackstone, KKR, big institutional investment companies, all of a sudden said, wow, this is a really great business. We want to invest. So that is when, call it, the great demand for storage came along. We did get some competitors after that, and there's new entrants into the market, but the business is still the same. You ask about property management, and we actually own our own property manager. It's called Self Storage Plus. It's the 10th largest manager of self-storage in the country. Not many people know that, but we're actually pretty big. And that means we have about 70,000 tenants. We lease anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 units a month at our 100 different stores up and down the East Coast primarily. And what's really changing in the business is folks are realizing that scale is very, very important. And that's sort of where the industry is right now, is folks are trying to build out platforms in various metros to get scale to be able to actually drive profit at these stores.
So I want to get back to that a little bit. Before we do, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis. You're out there, you're looking for new sites, looking for investment opportunities, maybe recapitalizing or refinancing your properties, maybe selling some of them. Talk a little bit about what you do, what excites you about what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I cut my teeth, got my broker's license in 2012, and I was primarily working for developers to find land or buildings to do residential development. And I stumbled across self-storage and developed my own niche. This is back in 13 or 14 when nobody was doing much in self-storage. And so was out meeting landowners, driving to sites, driving to markets, trying to find new sites. And that's primarily what I've done for the last 10 years, is both buy existing stores and actually find a little, rectangle or triangle piece of dirt to put our storage facilities on. And so what gets me excited is when you do that, you get to interact with lots of people. Sometimes it's larger companies that happen to own land that we can do our thing on. Sometimes it's farmers that have owned land for 150 years that they're wrapping up their farming operation. And so you mix with these various people, and it's very rewarding to build relationships, and it's really a partnership with those landowners to figure out a way to use their land. And as David and Brian both mentioned, very laborious to work with all the different constituencies to be able to build a storage facility. So the rewarding part is taking something from nothing, working with somebody that owns land to get their property to that, and then also
Brian, in terms of students, right, they're fresh out of college or not out of college yet, they're getting ready to come out of college. What would you recommend for them? Like, what are you looking for in new hires? How does someone get started in the business? Sometimes it's just kind of fortuitous, but do you want to be deliberate about it? What would you recommend to students?
I mean, understanding the asset. I mean, I think difficult thing that we do on the home building side is we lack a lot of jobs in the trades and understanding that asset. I mean, I went out, mentioned I built homes with my grandfather, but when I started with Van Metre, I also went out on the job site, and a couple of my direct reports, the first thing they did is, I got them on the job site, understand the asset that you're doing. You may not want to be, building homes and be in that part of the business, but if you don't understand the asset and what we're producing, then, that's very important. Obviously, financial background is good in whatever industry you're getting, so understanding the profit and loss. But I would say, like I said, the most complex thing we do is build the homes, and understanding how that process plays out is
How about you, Jill? I mean, you run an organization, right? So it's a nonprofit organization. There's not a lot of education in affordable housing right now. We're trying to change
Changing
that.
that.
At George Mason, our graduate programs are actually adding 3 classes in affordable housing this coming year.
there's the
But-
pitch right there.
Yeah.
That side, Brian is on our board, by the way, as well, so he's been very heavily involved in the process. But anyway, Jill, like, how does someone get into affordable housing? What should a student do if they want to get into affordable housing? They're well-intentioned, but how do you do it?
Yeah, no, I think any sort of opportunity for like an internship, whether that's like part-time during the year or a summer internship. I know Van Metre has great internships, and a lot of our housing developers do as well as our partners, local governments do. So I think any sort of like real world experience is really helpful and kind of can set you apart from somebody else who doesn't have that. So recommend doing that. I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested. We have at our organization, we have a Rising Housing Leaders program. So welcome students into that too. And that's just kind of like a free program. It's a lot of networking, meeting with industry officials, hopefully a link to get an internship or a job. So happy to talk about that, because I do think that does set you apart, and there's nothing like that real world experience, especially when it's something kind of amorphous like affordable housing that doesn't have like a defined career path. A lot of people come into the field from maybe a human service background or a nonprofit background or finance, legal, planning, local government, policymakers. So there's no just one path, which I think makes it amazing and makes it interesting, but it can be a little difficult to kind of chart out your course. So I recommend any sort of real world experience if possible.
It seems like it's so hard these days for students to get internships that there's just not too many students or not enough internships or something, but it seems like it's really tough to get an internship this day. I see some heads nodding.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
get over that hump.
yeah, I mean, I do think, any sort of connection you can make with people, with industry leaders. I know for like our little niche of affordable housing, having a passion for the work, really, it speaks a lot to employers. And it's frankly, a requirement of a lot of the people who might hire you. So if you can make, attending events like this, making connections in the field, I feel like our field is really, trying to promote new and upcoming. We're always worried about losing people in this field. So we're very interested in kind of growing the workforce and keeping people involved and letting people know, hey, if you're in this position and you don't love it, there's a lot of other things you can do to stay in affordable housing. Again, policy, development, finance, design, and human services and resident services. So it cuts across a lot of ways. Just, use your connections, really use your connections, be, be really intentional about it. I think in person, face-to-face communication, we're all missing that. So it's a requirement in real estate. It really
You all
is.
nailed it.
Yep, you did. You did.
Thank you.
So thank you. But yeah, I think it is an important component of the work. So reach out. People are really generous with their time and always, usually willing to meet with you or refer you to somebody who might be able to help you.
So like networking, if you're 20 years old, you say, go network. How do you network when you're a 20-year-old
Mhm.
in a meaningful way that can lead to job prospects?
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know anything. I don't know anybody. I don't even have a degree yet. How do you network? Shawn, how do you network when you're 20 years old and, you don't have any experience in the field?
You
How do
gotta,
you do that?
you gotta put the technology down. You gotta go out and find organizations, community involvement. You can even use LinkedIn. I connect with people all the time and they will ask, hey, do you have any internships? I'm like, I don't right now, but let's meet over coffee or tea and let's have a discussion about your goals. We will all say the same thing. It is connections, networking, that is key. And you've got to put that technology down, use it as a resource. But in our industry, it is all about that one-on-one conversation, that customer service. That's what we're looking for. We want to make sure that you can talk to individuals, that you have those skills, those soft skills, as we say, to be able to connect with individuals. So go out, join community events. My company is adopting roads and blocks around the DMV area. Part of that is advertising to the neighborhood that we're doing this. So if we're in your neighborhood and you're like, hey, Stoladi Property Group is doing Adopt a Block, join us, get out and join us, help us clean the street and talk to us. Things like that. That's what's going to get you in front of people. That's what's going to get your name discussed in our industry. And like, oh, I remember so-and-so showed up. They did really great and they're really interested in this. And that's what's going to kind of get you into our industry and get you those internships and get you the skills that we're looking for.
I mean, at industry association, so,
Yeah.
within what I do, and I know this is crossover with a lot of you folks as well, is, I mean, there's usually a local building industry association, there's a state industry association, and then there's a national one. In our area, Northern Virginia Building Industry Association, just down the street here. I know that we work with our board as well, and that's a good thing. They have a lot of events. They don't cost a lot, and be able to interact with folks as the industry associations are key.
Yeah,
So at these trade associations, this is basically, it tends to be probably more kind of leadership, right? So the people who tend to go there tend to be people who have the authority to hire, right? Who have authority to make decisions. And so this might be an event where there'd be 200 builders in a room, right? Maybe in a social event, maybe it's a cocktail hour, maybe it's a crab feast or something like that. And you have a chance to engage with them.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of students, that might be intimidating though, coming up to talk to
Just
the,
gonna say.
COO or the president of a company. And how does that work? What do you recommend to somebody who?
I don't know. I mean, I wish somebody talked to me when I was
Yeah.
that age.
Yes.
I've been very successful, but I early on, I would have been scared to do that. What I've noticed with a lot of our interns, we have them go through an intensive, understand the company. They do a capstone presentation at the end of the program to our CEO and our COOs, and they are so confident in what they're doing and how they're communicating. But it's really just, I mean, you got nothing to lose. Show up. A lot of the things that I'm talking about, those events are very laid back. You mentioned the crab feast, and they're not dress up galas, and just go and start up a conversation. I don't know how else to explain that other than that. So
just one other thing to add, I was thinking, in the affordable housing space, we do work with a lot of nonprofit organizations. They always need volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, sometimes you're working with the residents there, you get to meet the staff, you get to express your interest. It's like a lower barrier. They're always welcoming volunteers. They need you. So I think that's great experience on your resume as well if you're volunteering in your community. So I'd recommend that. But all the networking events, a lot of our organization provides scholarships to conferences, affordable housing conferences. Seems like we have a lot of events, and so even if the cost is too high, that's a great learning opportunity. as well. And I think you get real world experience and the ability to, to learn and network, which is really helpful in a conference situation setting.
I was just going to say, talking about kind of that intimidation factor. Remember, we're all human. Don't be afraid of us. We're nervous too when we get up and speak on a panel. It's human nature that we feel that. But once you have that first kind of initial like, hi, my name is, it gets easier and easier. And then you go to these events and you're like, hey, so I'm really looking to get into the real estate industry. I'm studying this. Can you give me a little guidance and help me out? It becomes easier and easier with practice. Just don't be afraid. We're all human.
Anthony, so you and I were talking a little bit beforehand about getting like a real estate license, a real estate agent license is kind of a way to get in the industry in some ways. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of time commitment. It's a little bit of money commitment, but it's one of the easiest ways to get a broad knowledge of the industry. Whether you're in residential agency or commercial agency, everybody gets the same license. So you will meet people that are from all backgrounds in that endeavor. There's free classes you can take. So I think it just shows that one, you're committing to a path. So when you go to network with people, especially folks like us, and you say, hey, I'm getting my real estate license, there's going to be an immediate connection just to dovetail the two concepts together. But it's a great way to get into the industry. A lot of people, that's their first path to the industry, and it can lead to pretty much anything else. And when you get your license, then you have to go meet people and try to get business. And that applies to everything we do. It's the most, in my opinion, having a license and actually being able to sell somebody's house or property, it gives you the skill to do pretty much the base skills to be able to do anything in our business and grow into other sectors.
When you get a real estate license, you take a class, you get a license, you could do something, for example, you could even lease properties, right? Like
Yep.
lease a house, which a lot of real estate agents don't really want to fool with sometimes because
Yeah.
it's not a ton of
No.
money, but it is thousands of dollars potentially in commission, right?
Yes, yeah.
So there's a lot of ways and opportunities to get into real estate. And to me, that seems like one of the lowest barriers to entry. The cost for the class, you can get discount coupons. I think the class is about 60 hours, but you'll learn a ton about real estate. And I think you can get a class for $100 or $200. So that's just something to think about. Let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn. So if they don't put their devices down, but they want to use that as a tool to network, to meet people, do you recommend using LinkedIn? Of course, you can make a friend or whatever, to become a buddy, a LinkedIn buddy, but it seems like there's not much to that. What do you do beyond that? Do you send emails to people? How does it work? Let's hear some experience with LinkedIn.
Yeah. Send emails to people. You can Google companies. You can look up Jill. You can look up Anthony, Brian. You can look us all up, and don't be afraid to send us an email. Hey, I'm attending George Mason University and I'm studying this. Can you provide me more information? Can you be like a guide for me? If we don't have time, we will connect you with someone. I am always kind of getting students emailing me from George Mason University, and if I don't have the answers, I'll connect them with a property manager or an engineer of mine and kind of help them out, help them guide them as to what certifications to do. So yes, emails, LinkedIn, organizations, as we've said, those are the type of things. Bring cards. If you don't have cards, which your students, you probably don't, bring a piece of paper and just write down your name, email, and phone number and hand it out and ask for their card too. A lot of us will carry cards on us. If we don't, it's all digital now. But connect. That is the key. Just constantly, don't be afraid to send an email, even if it's a short little email introducing yourself. Connect with us. Ask for phone numbers, text messages. Don't hound us, but definitely reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out.
And also say, keep that linked or establish that LinkedIn profile, because we're certainly looking at that from an employment standpoint to look at what's going on. I've advised my kids to do the same thing. I keep looking at it. They have not updated their LinkedIn profile. And I think some of the, there's a transition from being in college and then moving on into the real world. And like a lot of folks, if you look at it, have not updated those things. That's your resume that you don't have to send out ultimately. So I would encourage you to establish those things. Of course, reach out, but just by having those profiles and having them up to date is meaningful.
So let's talk a little more about that, because I'm sure plenty of people have LinkedIn pages, maybe they're wearing a t-shirt in the picture, or they're talking about a lot of high school things still. What do you all look for in a student's LinkedIn page? What would make you say, that lady is on the ball, that guy is on the ball, that's impressive? What would you look for in a student's LinkedIn page?
I mean, I look for extracurricular activities, certainly like athletics and things like that. Not that that's important necessarily, but it's something that always catches my eye when somebody's involved with something. And, now that, I have kids, I'm involved in a lot of things. So now I'm seeing crossover, like somebody went to some school. And so sometimes putting your educational background beyond college in there is important too.
How about others like Brian, like what should the picture look like for somebody?
Should be professional, right? I mean, it's not, and I see this from 50-year-olds on down. I mean, I understand wanting to appear somewhat casual, but ultimately you want to separate that and, be more professional. And you mentioned like the more organizations or things that you're involved with, that might be a connection point with somebody else. More things you can throw out there, the better.
What does a professional photo mean to you? A collared shirt, a tie, a suit?
Not the dog in the picture. I have one tie. I go to a lot of industry events. If you see me at that event, I'm wearing the one tie I have. I do not like ties. So it doesn't have to be, I mean, it can be casual appearance, not a tank top, hopefully, but I just think the personal element is probably not a good idea.
Okay, Jill, any?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a professional, social media. So present your best self in that light. And it can be different than what's on your Instagram, but it really is all about making a job and professional connection. So being professional, keeping it up, adding extracurriculars, any volunteer engagement that you have in the community is really important. I think it is a powerful tool, but it's just the first step. So following up with people, making sure you meet people, even say, I try to accept a lot of LinkedIn invitations of people, especially from students. So, maybe accept that. And if I see you at an event, come up and tell me like, hey, we're connected on LinkedIn. That's really helpful just to kind of emphasize that and keep at it. Just don't make one connection with one person. Our affordable housing industry is small. And so like, I might meet you at an event and then I'll hear from my colleague, oh, I met them too. They seemed really great. And hey, yeah, we should connect them with so-and-so. So it can be intimidating, but it is important to kind of keep making connections, and you'll be really surprised to see, how well the industry is really networked, and how you can kind of make a difference. But yeah, just be professional. And I think that goes to, personal relationships and interactions too. Invite somebody to a Zoom meeting. They're really willing to do that. If you happen to be close by, a coffee is great. Show up on time, be professional, be respectful, thank people after they meet with you, send your resume again, as a follow-up. I think all of that, really goes a long way and sets you apart from others.
I'd also add, excuse me, but if you're invited to a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, be on camera, right? I mean, I think that's wholly important if you're going to do that, to make sure you're on camera.
On camera and your background, and smile. Remember, you have 7 seconds to make an impression on someone, and that starts with LinkedIn and on Zoom in person. So wherever you're at, always smile, dress professionally. And if you're on a Zoom meeting or your LinkedIn picture, make sure your background looks professional, make sure you look professional and you're smiling, because that comes across to us. Just kind of looking out in the audience, I'm seeing some people smiling and I'm like, okay, I want to go talk to that person. And others are just kind of like, it's like, okay, are they engaged? So remember, 7 seconds, you're making an impression to people. Don't forget that.
Anthony, how about content? Like, when you're 20 years old, are you able to produce LinkedIn content, or does that set you apart? Hey, I reposted this article. It's really interesting. It really shows I have an interest in this field. What are your thoughts on trying to have content on your page at this stage in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think any kind of engagement on LinkedIn shows interest in an industry, and it always surprised me how much overlap you do see that if you spend time on the platform. You all are a generation that will spend a lot more time on those platforms than we will. I do spend time on there, and when people share things, it's relevant. Yeah, it definitely shows interest. It's engaging. And
do you look at people's LinkedIn page when you hire them? Someone sends something, you consider them as a candidate for a job. Would you look at their LinkedIn pages?
Oh, yeah,
So
I look at, to be clear, I look at all social media.
Yeah.
Same.
So let's go beyond that.
So take that for what you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk just a real brief minute about that. So the LinkedIn page, even if you didn't get the job or get the interview based on your LinkedIn page, you got it because you applied, you have a good resume. Somebody's going to check up on your LinkedIn page anyway, right? And so maybe when you were in the tank top, even if you were very impressed in a lot of ways, maybe it shows a lack of kind of awareness
Yeah.
that may be limiting to your careers.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever eliminated somebody for an interview or a hire off of a social media page. I think we genuinely use it to learn more about the people so we can get a better interview. And just a little bit about our organization. We spend a lot of time, we have very clear core values that we spend time on, and we don't necessarily hire for pedigree. We're looking for people that meet the core values. So that's what I'm spending time on, is to understand, are they going to be aligned with our values and be ready for the mission, which is high growth in our instance. So that's what I'm doing.
Let's talk briefly about coursework. Like, what kind of classes should someone take when they're preparing for a career in real estate? Any thoughts on that? I mean, obviously, if you're going to be an architect, you want to take architecture classes, but saying you're not going to be going to professional, a more generalist real estate background, what classes would you all recommend?
Brian said one earlier that I believe is key in every profession, economics, accounting. To be able to have a good understanding of that is very important. Even if you're an engineer, understanding accounting and mathematics, that is key. Business management is another one for me. If you're getting into property management, I want to make sure you have an understanding of some sort of business.
Finance is important, you know, just like even a basic finance, the money touches all of it, right? The money is what makes this happen for all of us. So I think that's an important piece of it too. And, you know, some sort of knowledge, and I think it's a little harder, I think maybe on the undergraduate level, but just a knowledge of like government and public process and entitlement, like Brian had mentioned, like that's really key in real estate. How are you going to move that forward in your community? And connections, you know, within local government and elected officials are really important. It's very important, that, again, back to that partnership.
How about public speaking? Is that something that would be important in real estate?
Absolutely. I think it's important in every industry.
Yeah.
A lot of what we've been talking about the last few minutes is really communications at the end of the day, right? And I think that's something that would, y'all would benefit from tremendously. But again, I think that's across industries, really.
Yeah, I think that's really key. I'll tell you on a true story. So someone who works in my organization who's moved up in the organization, she's proud George Mason alumni. When I was interviewing her for a position, you know, things were going well, and I asked for references, and she gave me a reference of a professor that she had here at George Mason, and he told me a story that totally made me feel very comfortable hiring her. He had, I think, an internship or some program, and she applied for it and she didn't get it. And she went back to him very politely, not harassing him, and just said, I'd love if you could just give me 10 minutes of your time to tell me why. Why didn't I get it? And he was so impressed by that, as I was, about like, I want to learn from this experience, you know, tell me, you have any suggestions? What did I do wrong? You know, and he said, well, you didn't have enough experience, or I can't even remember the reason. It doesn't really matter. It was just that, you know, importance of like following the thread through. And then so he became, you know, a trusted mentor to her from that experience, and served as a reference for her getting this position. She had been out of school for a while, but she still made that connection. So every opportunity, interaction you might have would be for a mentor, somebody who can serve as a reference for you at a future position. I think that's really key too, because that they can, some people just think, oh, you check the box, you need a reference, but it makes a difference for employers if you have like a real, true, important reference, I think.
Okay, let's wrap up. We're getting near the end of our time, but maybe you could just describe what type of entry-level positions are available in an organization like your organization, and how would be the best way for students to pursue them or prepare for them?
Yeah, I mean, kind of mentioned, we do a lot of things. So we've got marketing, we've got finance, we've got engineering across the board. And I think it's really just getting into the organization and learning the organization. So however you can get your foot in the door. Like I said, I came in on the finance accounting side, knew I wanted to be in the business and learn the rest of the business. So whatever you do, I think can lead to other things.
You know, I think we've kind of, we've said a lot what you need to do, but I do think it's just, you know, it really is a people-oriented business. So just continuing to kind of explore.
So Jill, could you volunteer, for example? Like
Yeah.
Organizations.
Yeah, volunteer, I think definitely. I mean, we usually will ask for volunteers for events. Again, we have this Rising Housing Leader program. You know, come join us on that. You're just like going, you know, interacting at happy hour, hearing from industry professionals, you know, scholarships for conferences. So I definitely recommend that for you. I think you know, we serve a lot of the affordable housing developers. So there's analyst positions early, you know, that's like entry stage, any sort of getting into it, property management, resident services, asset management, where you're analyzing. I think that's a really important growing field. Where we're maintaining those assets, and you can do that from the owner side in conjunction with property management and get a broader view of like your whole portfolio of housing is, I think, a really kind of opening up market in affordable housing. People are seeing, wow, we need to do a better job of preserving this asset, the physical asset, and also preserving it for people to live there long term. So those are my suggestions.
And Shawn, for you all, do you hire right out of college? And if so, what are you looking for and how do they get those jobs?
We do, as they've said, volunteer internships. As far as property management, beginner positions would be like property administrator, receptionist, coordinator, accounting assistant, AP assistant, AR assistant.
What are the AP, AR?
Accounts payable and accounts receivable, sorry.
And so does someone need to have an accounting background to do that? Or is it someone who's like, look, I just have a general degree, you know, I majored in marketing. Can I do that? Or is it like, no, you know, you need to be an accountant and.
Because it's a beginner position, we're usually more open to it. Depending upon the company, we're looking for someone that's going to stay and learn and grow. If you're coming in just to get a job and then you're planning to leave, we're going to see that and you're probably not going to be hired. But if you're interested in learning and growing and you're like, I really want to do more, we're going to reach out to you. We're going to ask you to come in because we want that. We want someone who's going to stay with the company long term and learn and grow. And that's why we offer programs with George Mason actually for educational growth. And one word of advice I just wanted to say, don't get discouraged. A lot of people I'm hearing are applying for jobs. The market is flooded right now with resumes and people applying for jobs. And I'm hearing they are getting frustrated and giving up. Don't give up. Listen to what we're saying about making yourself stand out from others. Use your AI if you want to build your resume, but just know we are flooded with thousands and thousands of resumes. So listen to the key details of what's going to make you stand out above everyone else to try to get that interview.
There's a job shortage in our industry.
Yeah.
A job shortage nationally in our industry. And so I think you're seeing an evolution of some of that. There'll be some jobs moving from other sectors into our business, but
Yep.
I think the future is bright in our industry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so for you, Anthony, in your business, you're pretty far up there, right? You're running investments, you get specialized knowledge, you've been doing deals, wheeling and dealing for years. How about someone coming out of college? Like, what are they going to do? What could they do at your company?
Well, we have a number of internships. We do tend to hire people off the internships. So anybody that's interested, happy to share that information. The entry level roles off the internships tend to be in asset management or construction at our company. So we have junior level construction roles that are, you know, when you build a building, you got a lot to deal with after building the building. So there's a lot of things that come out, like we let the junior folks deal with that after it's open. And then on the analysis side, we have asset management, which is really taking care of the assets from an ownership perspective. And those tend to be more junior, if not entry level. So.
Okay. So we're done with our hour's time. I want to thank our panelists for joining us. They're going to be available. So if anybody wants to talk to them, ask them specific questions, find out about their internship, they're most welcome. I know we have a number of people on the internet watching right now. So they are available, I hope, as well. If you wanted to send them an email and speak with them and let yourself stand out just a little bit. But thank you all for coming today. And especially let's thank our panelists for spending their time with us today. Thank you so much, everyone. All right. Thank you. Let's have some snacks. There's some over there.
Thanks to our moderator.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.